people are winning?
36.
36
Between
people.
now and the 7th of February.
Wait.
Every week there's a winner.
Even Professor Peter Kagwanja is here, and you know what he's going to do? He's going to buy his kiwi.
I'm buying safari boots.
Kabisa.
You
don't need kiwi. You buy it, you sponsor somebody. She want to be an MP again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Senator.
Senator and MP.
Ako juu. It's called upper house.
Upper house, lower house.
You should know.
You know these things.
Kenyans.
All of you.
We are very particular with names and titles.
Yeah.
Higher. City Muga. Please tell the good prof today's proverb.
I will. Our proverb is from the country of Sierra Leone. Quarrels end. Words once spoken never die.
Words once spoken
Never die.
never die.
Yes.
Quarrels-
But quarrels end. But words once spoken
Never
die.
Never die. So is this the same as saying that words are like arrows? The moment they leave the bow, they don't come back.
No, they don't.
Okay.
That's why when people speak in Kiswahili, say this person amenishikilia maneno. Yes.
Amenishikilia maneno.
Yes. The things I've said, they have held on to the words I have said. The issue is over,
Lakini.
but the things you said.
Remember.
Yes.
Ameshikilia maneno. You can forget, but not forgive. Is that the same?
There's that little detail, yes.
The
Because
other way around.
yes.
The other way around. You can
Forgive
Give,
what you
you
can
can
forget.
forgive, but you
Yeah,
don't forget.
Yes.
It's the same, eh? Wow.
Prof, welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you, Muga.
Always a pleasure to have you here. Now, you've been to this country of Sierra Leone.
Yes, I have been there.
You've done some work there.
Yes, actually, it was one of the few countries I landed when I was a young man by plane, traveling by plane. I moved from Nairobi to Addis Ababa, Jemena, then there's that Ethiopian Airlines. You keep on
You hop.
matatu,
You're
you hop.
hopping like
Oh,
a hop.
oui.
Sierra Leone is the first place I saw people getting into a plane. That time there was a plane called Air Afrique, which was like a matatu. You don't buy a seat.
It wasn't like a matatu, Prof. It was a matatu.
It was a matatu.
Yes.
You don't buy.
You don't buy a ticket. You scramble for the seat.
Meaning,
Then-
you buy a ticket, then you move
No.
yako itakuwa
Then-
You
poa.
enter the plane.
Yes.
Alafu makanga anakuja kichukua.
Akichukua na pia anakuonyesha pale utakaa. So a lady came and tucked herself under my feet with a baby and said, "Usiseme niko hapa," in French. Then I could not hear it. Then because I was not speaking French, but the neighbor told me. So with that, so it was.
She hid under your seat.
Yes, here under the
And the entire
seat.
duration of the flight.
With a baby.
No, we eventually
it-
said no, because you have to have the belts. Therefore, finally, those who have not gotten seat then are moved out. But I'm told every seat, including the one of the passenger, whatever the pilots and whoever, except the pilots. Every other seat is fair
shared.
game. Every other
fair
seat
game.
is fair game except the one of the pilot. So that's my initial memory of Sierra Leone. Those are the chaotic times when things were not really good. The other one, of course, they used the Kenyan military going to prevent when it was said that you had to choose whether you want the full arm or
Amplitude, yes.
half.
Yeah.
For the
The sleeve.
The short sleeve or long sleeve. That was the choice. That was really very ugly. Then finally, Sierra Leone come back.
Sierra Leone has made some great strides. I've been looking at a war that was internal, external. Internal conflict was terrible.
Now they have done very well.
Very well.
They are doing extremely well, including the trade, and even if you see the construction that is going on in that country, it's amazing. Yeah.
Then that just segues into our conversation, which is when does war end? When does development begin? In our context, when do elections end? When does governing and development begin? Now, we have been treated by these people called politicians, where you also want to belong, to some unending circus of politics and campaigning. In the last term, the argument was that no sooner had a president been sworn in and members of parliament taken oath of office and governors and MCAs, then they had started their campaigns for 2022. Now, again, this time, there are rumblings that, are we starting the 2027 campaigns already? Are we seeing that, I mean, people have just gotten into parliament, hata wajakula mshahara ya miezi tatu, hata waja apply grant ya gari na mortgage, and they're already campaigning for 2027. Are we there, Prof?
Well, let's see. It is important to notice the times in which we live. One of the assistants to I think it was Nixon, President Nixon, the U.S., was worried about what was happening when the TV and the radio came. And he said, "Sir, we have entered the era of perpetual campaigns." When you have to defend yourself more when you're in office to protect your office than possibly when you are campaigning. What that means is that we have flattened the what do you call it, the plane between what you used to call the campaign time and governing time. Campaign time in the US would be 1 year and 3 years of governing. In Kenya, it would be 1 year of campaign and 4 years of governing. And that's how the issue of development versus politics came in. That 1 year is for politics, hard tackling. 1 year, for 4 years, is to fulfill the promises that you gave in your manifesto. Social media has not helped the situation now. It is even more because every morning you wake up with a tweet, the Trump style. Now, so every minute, it's not even every day, every minute is a campaign minute. And the moment you do that, you don't do that, you're left behind. So perpetual or permanent campaign, because that's what they are calling it in political science now, it has already entered our classroom. We are teaching it in schools. The perpetual or permanent campaign, it has become the order of the day. And therefore, the moment you are elected and you are sworn in, you say, you don't know whether you are saying I will serve or I will start the campaign. You're not sure. Because if you don't start immediately, then you're in trouble.
Then you won't even serve.
And that was even emphasized by the victory of William Ruto. If Ruto did not have the Tanga, which was basically endless movement, that's how the former president Uhuru Kenyatta ridiculed it, that you are moving all around instead of settling down and doing development. He was among the first persons to complain about perpetual campaign in the country. If you look at Raila Odinga, he has been permanently on campaign throughout. And and the only person who was trying to think differently was Uhuru Kenyatta, but he paid for it. So, except we are in the era of permanent campaigns.
So this is who we are now.
Yeah, and don't even complain, because if you complain, if the British continue to complain about their weather and do away with the umbrella, they are in trouble. They have only themselves to blame.
How should it be? We're talking about permanent campaigns. People are talking about promises and what they want to do. Should they? So now, are we saying that even the government of the day is in campaign mode still?
It is started. I said before you say, my dear, before you say, I, Peter Kagwanja, by that time you don't know whether to say you will serve or you will campaign, because it is inevitable that if you don't campaign, you are going to be decampaigned. And therefore, you've got to make the choice whether you want to campaign or be decampaigned. Okay. This is what the assistant to Nixon was telling him.
So where does the choice of the people then come in when it comes to development and things that ought to be done as a result of these pre-appointment promises? The people waiting with bated breath about what ought to happen when said person, it doesn't matter at what level, from your ward representative all the way to your president, who said that they will do certain things in order for you to vote them into office, Nispa. Now, this person is there, and we're saying they're still campaigning. So what happens to these millions of people who are hoping that something actually gets done?
Well, I don't think it's as stark as such that it is either campaign or development. It's not as stark as such. During the time of Uhuru Kenyatta, those of us who had the little privilege to pen something and say what need to be done about this, because we saw it's a problem. the fact that we're discussing it here, it's a serious problem. And if you go permanently on a campaign mode without focusing on development, then you have basically undermined the mandate that brought you to the office. And therefore, in thinking, we thought it is possible to do the same at the two at the same time. But then what do you call that? So we came up with the idea of development as politics. So there is politics, and then you move to development as politics. When you talk about development of politics, what you are saying is that every moment you go, you do politics, but it has to be for development. Now, what is not happening is that most politicians have not transisted into development as politics mode. Take, for example, we have the problem of GMO as an issue that we're discussing. What should a politician who want to go into this development as politics, so that you achieve development at the same time you achieve bonga point for politics, because this is what every politician is looking for, the bonga points. So how do you get those bonga points? If I was a leader of opposition, like now, I would have come up with what you can call a shadow white paper on what GMO is, what it is not, what harm it is going to cause. And you go to the public, you come to Spice, you go everywhere and say, this is what facing Kenyans. I would not be calling for demonstrations now. I would be
You'll be very academic about it.
Not academic. I would be saying, it is not GMO which is a problem. It is the pesticides that it brings, and the pest and all that thing, and the cancer that, the sprays and all required by it will bring into your lives. That would perhaps be my line. It's not academic. It is because if you remember what Socrates, among the founders of democracy, was saying, it's a choice between the candy seller and what do you call the tooth doctor,
The dentist.
Now the dentist will always lose the contest because he give you pain by removing your teeth, but the candy seller will always make your life sweet throughout. So the sweet tongue versus the reality. This is what we're facing.
But then what I'm hearing you say, Prof, is you're saying that even the person in the opposition should come with reality. Because when you come with a white paper, you're basically coming with this reality that's packaged in a very, very scientific way. How about just tagging to people's emotions? Surely nyinyi watu wa bishop mnataka mimi nikule GMO kuanzia kesho, surely. That is sensational. When you hear Kalonzo Musyoka say that, you're like, enyewe hapana.
No, I hear you. What I am saying is, in a democracy, what works is knowledge. Even when you are telling a lie, you have to quote it with some truth. And that's what we are not saying. Being more systematic, more programmatic about things. And this is why the hustlers were ahead of everyone, because they tagged to things that were real. COVID-19 dismantled our economy, destroyed our economy, domestically and otherwise. If that was the impact. Before that, there were locusts. After that is Ukraine. So the economy was completely destroyed. Now, how do you ride on that? The impact of that economic destruction. So you say they are hustlers, which is true, because wars produce hustlers, famines produce hustlers. Every destruction of the economy produces hustlers. Then you mobilize those victims and they foot. What else? So you're really you are intellectual, if you wish, about things, but you put them in such a rhetoric that you win the day.
So what do you do as a government? So let's look at what the opposition is doing. The headline in the Standard this morning, right? Raila seeks to ride on Ruto's failed pledges. Man hasn't even done 100 days, but we have already called them failed pledges. And this is what Raila is saying with Martha Karua. We are starting these public consultations because people expect something of this government. People are not getting something of this government. So we are going to remind the people that this is a promise that you were made for by these people, made to, and they are not delivering. This is basically going with the same hustler narrative that was being used by Ruto in his campaigns. Look at the state of affairs. Look at the cost of living. Look at the state of your business. This man promised the hustler fund. Have you gotten any money? 500 bob. So how many businesses have you started? This is what they're going to ride on.
It's the same narrative, isn't it?
Same shoe.
It's
different
flipped.
wearer.
It is. But you know what? You talked about campaign time. You know, politics versus development. Now you must also know that our own politics is based on the binary concept. It's two. You have two governments, one in power and one in waiting. And those are in the constitution. In parliament, you call them the majority versus the minority. In public, you call them the government and the opposition. And these are legal concepts. Nothing is illegal there. Now, what happens is that if you are an opposition that cannot, color the paper black and white, then people will not see the difference. And that's the problem we have been having in this nonsense of power sharing. Because you are saying you mix a little white and a little black, then what do you get? Some gray. And you could never tell what kind of a government it is. And that's what they call the mongrel. If you remember, that word has been used in our public space.
Yeah.
Mongrel, meaning it's a dog whose breed you cannot tell. I mean, really, this is what they're saying. Now, the point is, power sharing blurs the difference between the opposition and the government. And the more, the harder the opposition is, the more it entrenches itself in its place. I have no problem with what Raila Odinga is saying at all. I have no problem with what Mada is saying because they've got to carve the niche as an opposition. And I think that's what Ruto said they be, that I want an opposition holding me to account. Now, I think what we are going to be asking is what tools is the opposition using to entrench itself and to be effective. And that's why I was saying, I think we need to change the tune. It's very clear. Previously, the opposition was doing what it was doing, going to the streets, mobilizing its support and so on in order to get a share of government. Now, you have to know that it is not a share of government you'll get. It is election in 2027. Therefore, you have to project yourself as a government. That is the concept of two governments. One in power, the other one in waiting.
What I've always found interesting is when we talk about politics, and this unholy mixture is referred to as a mongrel. When bees move from one plant to the other, doing the very same thing, we call it cross-pollination. And yet, what is produced, if you're talking about ecology, you say, it's wonderful. If you are talking about genetics, you say, the genes are made stronger when you mix them up. Now, what is wrong with a mongrel? What if the mongrel works? It may not follow the laid down procedures of what we have understood politics to be or what we've understood democracy to be. What if this mongrel is introducing us to a hybrid, something different, something that perhaps the world of politics,
The future of dogs.
Yes, exactly. A survivor.
I didn't think that we were going to talk about dogs today.
No.
But here we are.
You see, I am looking at our politics and I'm saying this.
Yes.
With all the problems that we have,
Yeah.
can we not look at our politics and say, we are actually introducing a new idea, a new concept into the way politics is actually worked on, the way politics works. Because the discussion is against a backdrop of what the ideal situation is. Now, if you look at the West, they have mongrel systems. Mongrel systems are coalitions. That's what they are. You create a situation where there isn't one party that dominates all, and for a good reason. But you have many people coming together. So the check and balance is already created within that association.
Well, I hear what you're saying, that we live in a society where we vote as individuals and the vote is counted as collective, as communities.
Yes.
How the Kikuyu voted, how the Luos voted, how the Somalis voted, all that kind of thing. When in essence, we spent about 25 $5 to ensure that each Kenya vote and the vote is protected individually. Meaning, we derive our concepts of democracy, including inclusivity and other concepts that go with that democracy, liberal democracy. We derive it from philosophically from Western idea of individualism, which is I am because I am, and because I am, therefore we are. Now, we are coming from a philosophical heritage where we say we are, and because we are, therefore
yes.
I am.
Yes.
No, so we are living at an age when philosophically we are in a crashing world where the way we think, the way we are brought up, the way we take care of ourselves. Who among us doesn't have a sister in their house or a brother in their house as they're looking for their jobs? Who among us is not paying school fees, or a cousin? Who among us is not feeding that grandmother of your other, father, uncle's father? I mean, it's none of us. It's the truth. This is what Tom Boyer was telling us, that when people in the 1960s started debating these two concepts of socialism versus capitalism, and Boyer told them, this is nonsense. Come to my house tonight and you see who is there. You tell me whether I'm a capitalist or I'm a socialist. so it's very clear that we are walking on our feet. On our head rather than on our feet. That's true as Africans, because our philosophy is consensus. We don't have this idea of crash. What they call without complicating the debate. What they call dialectics. That where something has to fight, so that when they fight, then you bring a bigger thing, and
then the outcome is
yes, and therefore conflict becomes the motor of development, which is not true. That's not how the African is wired. That's not how the Asian is wired. That's not how This is peculiarly an Anglo-Saxon. It's not even the way the Norwegians are wired or the way the Finns are wired. No, this is an Anglo-Saxon thing. And it is brought by philosophers whose name we know, and how they made it, and how it is now popularized as a way to live in the world, that conflict must be there so that we move on. But it has helped, because you cannot have a car moving if there's no conflict between the tire and the road. So that's how it has defeated our thinking, So we're confused.
Let's take a break. It's 27 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a situation room. Professor Peter Kagwanja is a governance expert, and he's here with us. We're talking about, when is it time to stop politicking and to start governing? Is it about that time, or are we in a continuous, perpetual state of politicking for governance, or governing for politics? Whatever. We'll be back shortly after we take a look at the weather and traffic.